Hello, how are you? I hope you're all okay. And let's have a look at today's lesson, literature class. Okay, so today's is about different types of literature and different functions of literature. So it's a sort of review session, and it will be helping with your summary of your books that you're going to prepare for next week and the week after. Okay, you ready? So today's class, we're going to talk a little bit at different types of literature and how do we know what the purpose is or the function is of the literature. Different styles of writing and their features and examples. I've got a little test for you later on, and a review of genres and features. This is for your book presentation, and an introduction on how to write a summary for your book presentation as well. Is that okay? Again, please pause the video so you can do the activities, and you'll get more out of the class that way. Okay, ready? First question, what type of writing is this? I want you to skim through just 2 minutes. What type of writing? How do you know? You can pause the screen if you want to. Okay, so what is it? Yes, it's quite simple to see this one. It must be a recipe, mustn't it? And it's a recipe with steps and the instructions for cooking mac and cheese. Okay, now the question is, how do you know what type of writing it is? I want you to pause the screen, pause the video now, and tell your partner, how did you know it was a recipe? Okay, pause now. Okay, so what jumped out at you? How did you know? It must be things like the vocabulary. So it's food vocabulary, flour, salt, pepper, macaroni, cheese, and the organization of the text, step 1, step 2, step 3, the grammar of the text. Did you notice the verbs? The verbs are very often in the imperative. Bring a pot of water to the boil. Start by melting. Add the flour. Add the cheese, that sort of thing. So imperatives, vocabulary, and organization. And then when you read it in more detail, you can see that, yes, it's definitely a recipe. You've even got the baking temperature and time at the bottom as well. Okay, let's try another one. So I'm going to show you another one on the next screen. What type of writing is it and how do you know? And again, I want you to skim through as quickly as you can. Here it is. So pause the video. What type of writing is this and how do you know? Okay. So what type of writing is it? Yes, it is English teaching activity writing. So instructions for teachers for activities. And how do you know? So talk to your partner about what gave you that idea. You need to pause the video now for a couple of minutes for pairs. Okay, so how do you know this is teaching activity instructions. Again, it's the vocabulary, isn't it? English, teacher's role, pair work, group work, PPP, ESA, all those things that are specialist vocabulary. It's the organization, which is instructions step by step and talking about the different teacher's role. And the grammar, what sort of grammar did you find in this? Now we've got modal verbs like should be, is critical, so modal expressions. Anything else you can share? Okay, we've got one more here. So the next slide, have a look and think, what type of language is it and how do you know? Okay, pause now. Okay. Did you get it quickly? So, what type of language is it? What's it about? It is, of course, instructions to change the wheel on your car. I don't know if you have a car, but can you change the wheel? Can you change a tire? It's something that everyone should be able to do. Okay, and talk to your partner now about how do you know it's that type of writing, type of language. 2 minutes now. Okay. Yes, so how do you know? Right, again, it's the same grammar. It's the imperative, isn't it? Locate, remove, apply, unscrew. It's the instruction form of the verb. It's the technical vocabulary, all of those technical terms that you need to know. And it's the organization, again, with numbered points within instructions. Did you notice which language it was written in? Is it British English or American English? It's actually American English because of the spelling of the tire, T-I-R-E in American English and T-Y-R-E in British English. But of course, that doesn't matter because you can use any version you like. Okay, so these are lots of different types of writing, different styles of writing. Do you know what they would look like? How are they different from each other? And can you think of some examples of each? Because each of these different types of writing are very different, and we need to be able to produce those different types of writing and recognize the different types of writing. So I would like you to pause the video now for 5 minutes, and in pairs, I want you to discuss these different types of writing and tell each other how they're different and think of some examples of each. Before you start, let's do one together. Let's do the first one together. So narrative writing, what would it be like? Narrative writing is telling a story. It's linking ideas together. It's usually about the past, so it would be using narrative tenses, past tenses. It's normally talking about something that is either true or not true. Examples could be novels, could be storybooks, could be children's stories, could be reports as well in a narrative writing. Okay, so can you go through the others with your partner? 5 minutes, pause now. Okay, so do you know all of these? Let's have a look now. I'm going to send you the PowerPoint later, but let's have a look to see if you agree with these differences. So narrative writing, yeah, telling people what happens. Examples, novels or diaries, could be presentations or speeches, and look at the features of each one. So the features of narrative writing, it's normally written in the first person, or storytelling in a written form, and it needs a lot of imagination. So that is that's the features. What about expository writing? That's the green one on the right. So this is to educate, not to entertain. It's no personal opinions included. And the examples are things like scientific or technical writing, or recipes, for example. The features could be an objective tone, often written in the third person with static facts. Do we agree so far? Okay. Next one, this is descriptive writing on the left. That's describing, to make the reader feel that they are there. For example, poetry, copywriting, narrative, non-fiction, fiction, but describing things with the features, usually a personal tone, with detail-oriented writing, a lot of adjectives often in descriptive writing, and adverbs. Persuasive writing on the right. This is where the author has a strong opinion and encouraging the other people to believe that. The examples, it could be an essay or a cover letter, which you write to accompany a job application. Opinions in the newspaper, reviews or sales or advertising when you're trying to persuade someone to buy something. And the features are personal opinion. It could be the first or third person, and a persuasive tone. Then we have creative writing and poetic writing. Now, all poetic writing is creative, but not all creative writing is poetic. So poetic writing is a subset of creative writing. Creative writing is thinking outside of the box, surprising, different ways of doing things, needs imagination. So that could be screenwriting, fiction, biographies, scripts. And you have to be as creative as possible and do things differently from how they've ever been done before. Poetic writing, this is normally in fiction, could be short stories, novels, and poetry. And often poetic writing has a rhythmic structure and using lots of poetic devices like alliteration, onomatopoeia, and those features that we've looked at. And we have technical and review writing. Technical could be logical, scientific, medical, textbooks, user manuals, and it's totally based on facts. Review writing, it could be to review lots of different things. And a good point here is that everything is now being digitized. So people usually read online in the UK before they buy anything. So they read everyone else's reviews, and everyone can post reviews about anything. So it could be a service, washing service, car service, anything. It could be a book review or a product review, for example, a car or a washing machine. It could be a review of a film or a book, of course, as well, like you're going to be writing. And it needs good persuasive writing skills and also good description writing skills, because you'll be in a review, you'll be persuading people if it's good or bad and describing it. Okay. And the last one here, objective and subjective. So these are very different, aren't they? Objective writing, when you want to prove something with facts and you have to be unbiased. It should be quite neutral And this is often educational texts based on evidence and facts. And then subjective writing is showing feelings and opinions and preferences. So this comes from your own personal experience. Blogs, opinionated pieces, travelogues, anything that comes from your own ideas, mainly written in the first person and shows personal thoughts and opinions. So when you're writing your review, you need to write a mixture of objective and subjective. The objective writing is the summary and the facts. The subjective writing is the opinions about it, your preferences, and why you would recommend it or not. Okay, so we're going to review the genres and features that you need to use in your book presentation. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little test. I want you now to write down the numbers 1 to 5 in your notebook. After each question, you need to write T for true or F for false next to each number. Is that okay? Let's see. I'm not taking the marks of whether you get them correct or not. Number 1, are you ready? Okay, 1, there are 3 different genres of literature. True or false, you have to write down T or F. Okay? Number 2, onomatopoeia is when words sound like their meaning. For example, roar, cuckoo, meow. True or false? Okay. 3, a metaphor is when authors compare things to others using the words like or as. True or false? T or F? Number 4, alliteration is the repetition of identical initial sounds. For example, Robert Frost is an author. I have stood still and stopped the sound of feet. And Yeats, I hear lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore. True or false? And number 5, figurative language is when lots of figures are used. True or false? Okay, let's go back over and see. Number 1, true or false? It's false, of course. It must be false. There are a lot more than 3 different genres of literature. Every week in my literature video, we've been looking at a different genre. So we have, for example, sci-fi literature. That's one genre. We have colonial literature, another genre. Fairy tales, children's stories, factual books, travel literature. All of those are different genres or types of literature. Okay, so number 1 is false, a lot more than 3. Number 2 is true. Yeah, so onomatopoeia is cuckoo, meow. It's the word sounds like the meaning. Okay, true. Number 3, true or false? Of course, that is false. A simile is when you use like or as, and a metaphor is when you're comparing things, but not using the words like or as. So number 3 is false. Number 4, true or false? That is true. And alliteration happens a lot in poetry when the author uses the same sounds again at the beginning of words, and it sounds beautiful. I have stood still and stopped the sound of feet. I hear lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore, because the poet thinks about every single word. So true for 4. And number 5, is that true? No, of course not. That is false. Lots of figures. What does that mean? Nothing. So figurative language, there are lots of different types of figurative language. We're going to have a look at some of them now. Did any of you get 5 out of 5 for my little test? I hope so. If not, you can look back later, or you can rewind the video. So just to review some types of figurative language, and you might like to give some examples of this as features of language from your book for your presentation. So we have similes, and we've got some examples there, using like or as, comparing. Metaphors, when you're comparing but not using like or as. Some lovely examples there. Time is money. The warrior has a heart of stone. Love is a battlefield. Baby, you are my sunshine. Okay. Hyperbole, number 3. This is exaggeration. Hyperbole. It's often used. It could be humorous. I've told you 1,000,000 times to wash the dishes. I would die for you. You snore like a freight train. So it's saying facts, but exaggerating them a lot. Number 4, personification is giving a human characteristic to a non-living object. The sun greeted me when I woke up. The radio stared at me. The car brakes screamed. It's very nice to make it personified. And the last one, number 5, onomatopoeia, is something that names something or an action by imitating the sound associated with it. The fireplace heater hissed and cracked. The alarm clock buzzed at the time. Okay, so these are 5 different features. If you can find some like this in the book that you're reading for your presentation, then please give a few examples. So this is what you need to do for your 3-minute book review. I hope you've read your book already now, and you've got 1 or 2 weeks to prepare your 3-minute presentation. So you need to, number 1, briefly summarize the book. Don't say the whole story of everything. You haven't got time. Just a short summary. Talk about the genre and the features. So which type of literature is it? What genre is it? Which features does it have? Include a few interesting quotations and say why you would recommend the book, or not, if you wouldn't recommend the book. So maybe 1 minute for the summary, 1 minute for the numbers 2 and 3, the genre, features, quotations, and 1 minute for the recommendations. Can you see how this is a mixture of objective and subjective? So the summary, the genre, and the features will be mainly objective, but it's very difficult to summarize something unless you are being subjective as well. The quotations will be your favorite quotations, so that is subjective. And the recommendations, again, that's your personal opinion, and that's subjective. So these presentations will be on Tuesday the 14th and Tuesday the 21st in literature class time, and they'll be recorded and sent to me for marking afterwards. Each person will present for 3 minutes, and then the class can ask 1 or 2 questions afterwards. Is that okay? Any questions about these, then please ask me in the WhatsApp group. One thing I think we need to look at now is how to write a summary. So these are some tips on how to write a summary. Don't just copy out chunks of the text. You need to maybe note down some key words and then link them together. Imagine someone asked you, what is the book about? And you just want to tell them very briefly without boring them and making them go to sleep. You need to be concise, so slick, and just say the main facts. Don't repeat yourself. Link the ideas coherently and slickly, as straight as possible. You need to convey the main ideas, and maybe if you ask yourself the questions what, who, where, why, and when, that will be the main ideas. And a very good tip here is you could do an elevator pitch. You know, an elevator or a lift, which goes up inside a tall building. They say that a good way to sell something is to do an elevator pitch, which means to sell it to somebody in the time it takes to go up in the elevator with someone. People are very, very busy now. And if you catch them in the elevator for maybe 1 or 2 minutes, and if you manage to condense your ideas and sell them something in 1 or 2 minutes, then that is your success. So your summary should be an elevator pitch of your book. How could you tell someone what it's about in the time it takes to go up in the elevator with someone? Let's have a little bit of practice. Let's practice summarizing this story. So Cinderella, you know the story? I'd like you to pause the video now, maybe for 10 minutes, and in pairs, see if you can write the story of Cinderella in under 40 words. Okay, so don't copy out chunks or tell the story from the beginning. You need to just very, very briefly, let's look back. What, who, where, why, when, concise, what's it about, and fitting in an elevator. So pause the video now, and you have 10 minutes in pairs to write the story of Cinderella. Okay, go. Okay, have you written it? If you want to, you can compare your summaries with other people's. I got one here to compare with you. Here is one. So look at this. This is under 40 words. Once there was a hardworking girl with a wicked stepmother and a heart of gold. She got a makeover from a fairy godmother, scored a dance with a prince, and snagged a happily ever after in a pretty sweet castle. Good summary? So, of course, it doesn't tell the whole story. Of course not. But it's talking about who, where, what, why, how. And it links the ideas together well. And of course, the language is correct. And it's only 2 sentences. So sometimes you can get quite long sentences in summaries with a list of activities. Makeover from a fairy godmother, dance, happily ever after. How does your summary compare with that? Okay, so good luck writing your summaries. We're going to practice on Friday in the language class with some more summary writings. So your homework is to prepare the book. So you must have read the book that you chose. Prepare your 3-minute presentation, summarize the story, comment on the genre, style, and features, choose some interesting quotations, and say why you would recommend it or not. Now, I want you to prepare and check your language very, very carefully. We've been doing lots of checking and error correction, and you can do it when you focus and you have time. So please, 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 I'm going to be assessing these presentations. So the language has to be as accurate as you can possibly make it. So write everything out. You can have your notes with you during the presentation. Make sure you correct all the errors. Okay, that's it for today. See you soon.